Welcome back, everybody, to Magic with Randy. I am Randy, and today we're breaking out the standard metagame once again from this past weekend. Now, it is not going to be as much as we normally get. Magic Online has been having a lot of problems lately. It has been fully fixed, though, so no more lag, but there's a massive lag issue they had with this turns taking a long time and just trying to process and go through the phases. So it did cause a lot of issues. It ended up canceling some challenges and things like that because of it until they were able to get it fixed. So it won't be as big as we normally are, just a fair warning to you guys. But with that out of the way, as always, guys, if you like what you're seeing, you like what I'm doing, go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, it really helps out. And let me know what you guys are playing in Standard, getting ready for, to take down your local RCQs. And if you're preparing for the RCs coming up here in February and March, let me know what you're playing, what you're thinking. Love to hear from you guys. Alright, with that out of the way, we did have a standard challenge on 110, that's Friday. Esper Bounce took the majority share here with 7 copies, and then Golgari Midrange was at number 6. I don't know why. If you go and watch, if you go and watch the podcast I do with Dakota Crawford or Carl Daddy is what his name is on YouTube, we do a podcast. I'll have a link down below. We break down the tournament that just happened, this Arizona Atlanta Spotlight Series, and Golgari Midrange had a terrible conversion rate and terrible win rate as a whole. That whole weekend, this didn't do well at all, and so I have no idea why 6 people decided to go ahead and register that or take that into the top 32 or able to make it to the top 32 with that. I don't know how we have 6 copies. I'm honestly surprised. I know they're trying to go towards a more aggressive line. It still doesn't work. They play a bunch of 3 drops, 4 drops. When you have, things like Esper Bounce, the Simic, the Sultai or Bug, the Bant version is still running around. There's a 4 color bounce in here. It's like this. We have all these bounce decks. Oh, the Dimir bounce as well. There's all these decks that are playing this town ain't big enough that's going to bounce all your big spells. You're just losing out on that tempo exchange so much. So I just don't understand how Golgari was able to do so well. It's a mystery to me. But Golgari did have 6, Dimir Midrange with 5, Gruul Aggro with 4, Azorius Tempo with 2, Boros Aggro with 2, and then a bunch of one-ofs, like that 4-color bounce and Cage putting up a number. The solution to control this is just like Caretakers with green splash, just to see if you guys are curious. But, excuse me. But yeah, Esper Bounce, showcasing that it is here to stay. It was called Esper Pixies. If you watch the Atlanta Spotlight series, they were calling it Esper Pixies. A lot of places are now calling it like the Esper Self Bounce. I'm just calling it Esper Bounce. It's easier, quicker, as a whole. But definitely here to stay. Definitely putting up numbers and doing well. That being said, though, to the surprise of no one, the Gruul Aggro deck did win. If you notice, this is very reminiscent to what we saw from the winner of the Atlanta Spotlight Series. They're playing the 4 Leyline Resonance in the main deck. They have, Giant Growth, a bunch of different pump spells. We're playing Canopy, the Scamp, playing the Hero, playing 2 Callous Sellswords. They're just for the ability to throw our creatures. Definitely very reminiscent of what was going on in Atlanta. So not too surprising that people are wanting to play this deck and showcase it out. It did just win one of those biggest, one of the biggest tournaments of the year so far. Obviously, we're just in January, so there's going to be more tournaments. But it did just win the first big tournament of the season essentially. So it's not too surprising to see this deck now also getting played a lot in the challenges. Nothing really too amazing to talk about. This is just what we expect to see. Nothing too crazy there. All right, going on, and the next challenge we had was on Sunday. So we only had 2 challenges this week. A little disappointing, I know. It's going to be a much shorter video. I apologize, but I don't control Magic Online. If I did, I have a lot more money than what I do now. But Gruul Aggro, once again, putting up 6 copies. Again, not surprising. Like I said, we just saw it take down the last one on Friday. So we saw it take down Atlanta Spotlight Series last weekend. So again, not surprising to see this deck still putting up a bunch of numbers. And then we have Golgari Midrange at 3, Azorius Tempo at 3, Esper Bounce at 3, and then Dimir Bounce at 2, Celestia Cage at 2, Boros Aggro at 2, Domain at 2, Azorius Control at 2, Caretakers at 2, and then a bunch of one-ofs. So nothing too surprising here. Esper Bounce and Dimir Bounce are probably the two best bounce decks, I would say. That being said, I'm still partial to the Eddie Murkrab version of these decks. I like that deck a lot. I think it's still really well positioned. We'll have to see, how that deck fares moving into the bounce metagame that we are in. Maybe I'll have to switch over to Esper Bounce as we get more into the season and such. Luckily, I did secure my RCQ victory already, so I don't have to worry too much. But I do need to figure out, what Standard is going to look like at the RCs. Thankfully, we have a couple months before I have to remotely look at that, or anyone has to remotely look at that. But I'll still keep going over all these challenges, giving you guys as much information as I can and breaking it down as best as I can. Surprising to see that the Azorius Temple deck didn't put up more numbers after, putting up copying the top 8 last weekend at the Atlanta Spotlight. I think that deck is still very well. I think it is a little worse against all the tempo decks, all the bounce decks running around. That could be why it's not seeing so much play. I'm not 100% sure. I just figured it would kind of have more of a resurgence to what it did, especially after last weekend doing so well and the challenges and everything else. That being said, though, so they call this Azorius Tempo. It is essentially Azorius combo, and I'm going to break this deck down a lot more here in a couple seconds. But essentially, the whole goal of this deck is that we get to put Omniscience into play by discarding it through one of our many discard outlets with Moment of Truth, Filage, Picklock Prankster, Charted Course, Confounding Riddles, and then we do the Abudo's Awakening. So 4 mana, you get to put enchantment from your graveyard, or non-aura enchantment graveyard from your graveyard into play. It is a 1/1 spirit with additional plus X or +1/+1 counters when you pay X. So it's just 4 mana makes a 1/1 spirit. You put Omniscience into play. You then cast the Invasion. The Invasion goes and gets Unnerving Grass. Unnerving Grass bounces the Invasion. Invasion casts the Unnerving Grass, or gets the Unnerving Grass. You cast Unnerving Grass, you bounce the Invasion. You then use the Invasion to get back grass from your graveyard, and repeat the cycle, manifesting continuously until you have a big enough board state to which you can then pass the turn, and next turn kill them. This deck is already being iterated on more. I saw someone else talking about playing. I can't remember the spell. It's a 4 mana red white 2. You make 2/1/1 and your creatures have haste until end of turn. They're playing that in the side so they can just win the same turn that they go off. It's a very interesting deck. It seems kind of powerful. Obviously you can lose, if you don't mill over, you don't get your Awakening and Omniscience in, a quick enough time. You can lose to the super aggro decks. Counterspells still hurt this deck as a whole. Thankfully, no one's really running them as a whole in the main deck, so you kind of have a lot of leeway with this deck. Kind of interesting to see it do well. I definitely expect to see more of this deck as a whole, and it's probably just be like a niche piece of the meta. I don't think it's going to be anything like where we're going to see, 8 copies in the top 8 type situation or anything like that. It's not going to break the meta game by any means, but it is very cool to see. We're still finding all these new decks and new things to be playing. Playing in Standard. Standard is very rich and very deep as it stands right now. It's only going to get deeper as we go on through the year with getting more and more sets. We are scheduled to have 6 sets altogether, 2 universes from Beyond, and then 4 regular sets. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen and what we're going to see moving forward with all these sets coming out and what new combos and cards and combinations we get to play with. Alright, so explaining this combo a little bit better here. So anyone who doesn't know, Omniscience is a 10 mana enchantment. You can cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. Super good, cost 10 mana, bad. So our game plan is to get this card into our graveyard, so then we can do Abulo's Awakening. And for 4 mana, 3 and a white, we can return an artifact or non-aura enchantment from our graveyard to the battlefield with additional plus X, or additional X, with X additional +1/+1 counters. It's a 1/1 spirit with flying in addition to its other types. So for 4 mana, we get Omniscience back into play. It's also a 1/1, so it is weak to creature removal. That is something to look out for if you're playing this deck. And then we have the Invasion here, which is 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library, graveyard, and or outside the game for an instant or sorcery card you own, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle and if you search your library, shuffle. So anyone who doesn't know, any card that says outside the game when it comes to competitive Magic, or high level Magic, it means that's your sideboard. That is what you can go dig for. So like how we have Karn that says the 4 mana Karn says outside the game, it says whatever's in your sideboard. That is what you can go grab. So what we have in our graveyard here is either Unnerving Grasp, which is 2 and a blue, return up to 1 target non-land permit to its owner's hand. You Manifest Dread. So you look at the top 2 cards, put one of them onto the battlefield as a face down as a 2/2 creature, the other one into the graveyard. So, or we have Seasons of Weaving, which is a 6-mana sorcery. You get to do up to 5 Paul's worth of modes. So you can either draw 5 cards, you can choose an artifact or creature you control and create a token that's a copy of it, or return each non-land, non-token permit to its owner's hand. So these are like our big things to go get with the invasion. Seasons Weaving lets us kind of reset the board if we need to. It also would bounce back our invasion to be able to recast it later. Big thing. But the way we're going to win is we're going to use invasion, cast it for free, get Unnerving Grasp, cast that. We're going to target our invasion, bounce it back to our hand. Then we're going to Manifest Dread. Then we're going to keep repeating this. So Unnerving Grasp goes to the graveyard. Invasions comes. We recast invasions. We go to our graveyard, grab it out, recast it, repeat until we have enough power to we can kill our opponent on the next swing. Now, obviously, this is weak because if they have a board wipe or like a way to wipe our creatures or anything like that, we're not going to then win. We can put ourselves in a more precarious position. That being said, there are ways, this deck is already being innovated on and made better, so I'm sure we'll see even a better version of this next week, as well as, the challenges go on, people keep playing it, innovating on it, things like that. But there is not much else to talk about this week. There was only 2 challenges, unfortunately. But I'll be back next week with more breakdowns, more challenges, explaining the meta more as it keeps evolving. We keep seeing these new decks pop up. Like I said, Standard's in a very amazing position right now. We keep having this new decks seem to keep popping up. Almost every 2 weeks it seems like a new deck is popping up. That's a great sign of Standard just being so deep. With all the cards you can play, all the different strategies that are available. So looking forward to see what keeps coming up. And I will catch you guys next time. As always, like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel; it helps me out. And let me know what you guys are playing in Standard. Let me know what you guys are practicing for the RCs. I'd love to hear from you. I'll catch you guys next time.